Kings and queens, welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all having a fantastic day. Today we are making a recap video covering pretty much everything that we missed in the past few days. Has been a couple of things that I really haven't covered on the channel that I want to talk to you guys about that have been in the DBD news cycle. So let's go ahead and talk about everything that has been announced. First things first, Dead by Daylight, they have introduced something for solos that is going to help the game so much, and I'm really happy they finally decided to do this, and that is player icons that allow you to see what everybody else is doing. So as a survivor, if you're, playing your game normally, in the bottom left hand of your screen where you're seeing everybody's names and their portrait icons, you'll actually see what is going on, like what they're doing. So if someone's working on a generator, you'll see it. If someone's on a chest, you'll see it. If someone's cleansing or blessing a totem, you will see it. This is huge because it's giving you a lot of information on the solo queue of what's basically going to happen. And I think this is a nice buff to solo queue. Everyone's finally going to be able to know what's going on. Essentially, if you're playing on comms, obviously this would be known information anyways. So it makes sense that for solo queues, you have the same treatment. So this is really good. Now, I hear a lot of people saying that what if the killers see this as well? I don't think the killers are going to be seeing this as well. I'm not going to lie, I haven't tested anything. I don't even know if this is fully out in the game quite yet. I believe it is though, or if it's not, it's going to be coming out on a PTP, which will probably be coming out early next year. And I highly doubt that the killer will be able to see all this information the same way that the survivors can't see the hook counts. That way, it'll just keep the game pretty much fair. And overall, I really like this idea. I think it's super cool, and I'm happy they finally incorporated a feature like this. We've been asking for something like this for such a long time, and it's finally here. So can't wait to see what it's like in-game and really test it out and see how good it can really be. Moving on to some more information, we finally have some information about the Rebecca Christmas sweater. So we know that Rebecca and Ada are supposed to be getting some ugly Christmas sweaters that were supposed to be available in the Dead by Daylight store, and it says that the collection is now available via in-game store for Resident Evil Project W, so you guys can finally get your hands on the Ada and Rebecca skins that we've been talking about for quite a while. I know a lot of people were super curious on when this was coming out. Well, we finally have it here now, which is absolutely amazing. Finally, it's about time. Moving on forward to some more information. This one I'm going to make a separate video on as well, covering it a little bit more to really show you guys the overall of everything. But long story short, Dead by Daylight put out a brand new satisfaction survey, a player satisfaction survey. And typically in these, they're collecting information from you, understanding like what they did right, what they did wrong, etc. And there was a couple key questions in here that I want to highlight because the last time they kind of did one of these, we had a potential like different types of things to come into the game, different licenses, and everybody really went crazy and nuts and voted for a bunch of things. And we actually seen a lot of things from that list coming into the game. It wasn't necessarily the most voted or the most popular, but on the list, we got some things. This year, they kind of are doing the same thing. I don't know if this is going to happen, but there's a lot of excitement for it. Let's talk about it. In question 29, they said, what potential do the following features have to impact your excitement for Dead by Daylight? And in these, they mentioned quite a few things that are really cool, and I want to talk to you guys about it, and we're going to go in depth on some of this in tomorrow's video as well, but let's take a look at some of these things. They said a new type of gameplay in-game events. This one I think is pretty standard. I think they'll just do this regardless, having think it back to the Pistula pedals or things like that, where you had to like go to these Pistula plants, grab things. So different type of gameplay. I think this is a no-brainer, something that they would do rather than here's fancy hooks, fancy gens, play the game normally, you just get a little bit of extra points. And I think people would actually like that. When this was out previously, I think if they fine-tuned it just a little bit, everybody would have liked it. But hey, to each their own. The next thing that they mentioned, which really starts getting into the spicy stuff, is a new PvE game mode and a new PvP game mode. Now that is cool. We've been asking for game modes for such a long time. And I kind of always go on this rant whenever I'm streaming. By the way, we're live right now. But I always go on this rant when I stream saying how impactful new game modes would be for Dead by Daylight. For me, and I'll give you guys the same rant, I feel like Dead by Daylight are in the boat where they're like, if we add a new game mode, it's going to split the player base, and one of the game modes, which is most likely the new game mode, will end up dying, wasting all of our resources, all of our time, etc. Now, what they should do instead is add these special or new type of game modes in custom games. Once they're in the custom games, they can then get other big content creators. Obviously, they have all of their Fog Whispers who are very influential, and they can even make some paid promotions with other really big content creators to play these private games and test out these new game modes, which then gets pushed out to the public and everybody sees it, and then more eyes will be on this other game mode. And, you know, the average person might take a look at it and be like, hey, this looks quite fun. Let me give it a try. Think back when some of the bigger content creators came into the game, Shroud, Tim the Tatman, etc., and they came to play Dead by Daylight. They went into a custom game because that's where all these big creators are going to be going. They're not going to be playing in a regular game, and it was just chaos. You know, they couldn't even use certain things, and there was no ban options, things like that. It was just super chaotic, and it gave a really bad impression of Dead by Daylight to the average audience. Now imagine if custom games got, you know, fine-tuned, brushed up well, and then when you click on this custom game mode, everything is already set, ready to go. Boom. These content creators will come into the game. They'll do that. Boom. They can hop into a game. No issues whatsoever. The impression of the game would be fantastic to everybody, and the new player experience would be great. And on top of that, it's new game modes, which will be super fun. That way, the average audience will see it. They'll be like, this is really cool. Jump into DBD, thus helping everybody. More players is better for everybody. So having a new PvE game mode or PvP game mode would be absolutely fantastic to have in Dead by Daylight if they add it as a custom game and really brush up custom games to have more options, more rules, things like that. And I think it will be good overall for everybody. And I think that's the only way custom games would work in Dead by Daylight. You can even go as far as saying to get your 2v8s that everybody's been talking about, to get a prop hunt game mode. PvE works out in the way where you're, you know, running against all the zombies, things like that. And I think it'll be pretty cool. Moving on forward, though, I digress. They also had some other options in here which are pretty insightful and pretty cool if they end up adding it into the game. One of them being new game mode objectives in the current game mode. So that means, you know, if you're working on a generator, before you have to work on the generator, you have to turn on a switch across the map. You know, we've spoken about things like this in the past. I think it could work quite well. It would really shake the game up a little bit, and I don't know how everybody would feel about it, but personally, I think that's pretty exciting. They then talked about different types of rewards in the archives. Again, another one that I think could be really, really cool if they add new Moris into the shop, you know, and make it on the free track for level 100. Obviously, we have those kick-ass cosmetics that typically are at level 100, but if you add a free Mori that any killer can use on the free track, it would be absolutely amazing. And that way, you can play Hag, you can play Trapper, you can play Blight, and they'll all have the relatively same Mori that works for everybody, and it'll just be like a, hey, I made it to level 100 in the archives kind of thing, and people would know. Especially if they're going to be adding in their new final Mori system, you will be seeing Moris quite often, so I don't see why this wouldn't be a possibility to do. Moving on next, they then talked about the ability to obtain community-created cosmetics. This is fantastic. I always said that the community is so awesome. You know, they're very, very excited and fresh eyes, essentially, to come and to make new community things, whether that be in cosmetics, chapters, etc. And they're just so creative when it comes down to everything. Now, not to take away anything from the devs, but sometimes, you know, if you're playing 2,000, 3,000 hours into one specific character, you might be really inclined to do something really awesome for them. And by doing that, you might create something that's super unique that only someone with, you know, your status would be able to do. We've seen some of the best cosmetics, at least in my opinion, with the community created things, notably the Plague skin, the Artist skin, the Yui skin, the Fang skin, even Clown with his elephant, mask. These have been some of the best cosmetics that I have seen in the game. Obviously, the devs do a great job as well. They have tons of great cosmetics, but like I said, having those one or two really, really awesome ones really go a far way. I think this would be amazing if the community had more cosmetics in the game, or if you're able to obtain some of the ones that you haven't previously received. It would be really, really cool. The next thing on the list here is increase the frequency of in-game events. I think this would be great. You don't want to oversaturate the market though, because then it'll just become a thing like, everyone's like, oh yeah, next week we'll just have another one, so why even play this one? So maybe ease up on it. Don't go too crazy for it. But as far as I know, except for the random 1.5 or 2 times blood point events, we have the Halloween event, the winter event, the lunar event, and I think that's pretty much it for the year, with the exception of a few things. So maybe 1 or 2 more might do us some good. I wouldn't mind too much. We'll see. Next, they spoke about a ranked mode. Again, a ranked mode would be something that I always advocated for. I thought would be absolutely fantastic. If people want to play sweaty and they really don't want to play casual, a ranked mode would work good. However, if a ranked mode were to come into the game, they would have to make it really, really, really specific. Think about how other games do it, where the maps aren't necessarily RNG. Certain things might be banned, certain things might be balanced differently. That way it can be a fair test of skill rather than RNG's in my favor, so I'm just gonna dominate, or RNG's not in my favor, so GG's, I lost. And that way you can accurately test, who's a better player rather than, okay, RNG was just in your favor. So ranked mode could definitely work in the game. Obviously, the biggest concern, I believe, is splitting the player base and maybe having to balance 2 separate games. But with that being said, I do think that they can be able to do it with the amount of player base. I know I can't English, by the way, but I think that they can do it with the amount of people that are currently playing the game, especially with a huge wave of new players coming into the game. So having that ranked mode might work quite well. I don't think it will be as popular as the casual mode, but it wouldn't be bad. People would actually really try to get up there, and it could be good. Next on the list is improved graphics. And this is something that I think would be really, really awesome as well. Having a graphical update in DBD again, making it look even more realistic than it looks currently. DBD has come a far way from looking like a very mediocre game to now having some pretty good lighting and not looking so bad whatsoever. I do think that they can do a lot more when it comes down to lighting and in-game settings, etc., to really help the players see how beautiful Dead by Daylight can be, and I wouldn't mind having some improved graphics in that sense. The final thing that they have is increase the frequency of community-related events. Now, I'm not necessarily sure if they mean like things that they stream on their channel and people can take part of that, or actual in-game events, because they didn't really specify here. Nonetheless, anytime the community is involved, it's bound to be fun and good times, so I am all for it. And there you go, my friends. That is pretty much all of the things on this survey. I'll leave the survey down below so you can fill it out yourself and give your own opinions on this. But a lot of cool things that are really, really, really awesome in there. They also asked a couple of other questions that were pretty significant that, I wouldn't necessarily cover, like, what medium would you like to see new licensed outfits introduced, like video games, anime, real life, things like that. Just, prepping for 2023, essentially. And there was a lot of other cool things that I recommend you take a look at yourself and you give your own individual responses, because I'm sure they'll use that information. Nonetheless, we've been talking for about 14 minutes now. I'm going to wrap this video up. I hope you guys did enjoy. If you did, leave a like down below. Subscribe for some more awesome Dead by Daylight content. And as always, I'm the king. I tip my crown to you guys, and we'll see you in the fog.